Hello everybody, my name's Anna Beck and I'm a test manager at Bright Pearl. That doesn't actually mean that I manage any testers, no. Going back to Paul's keynote earlier today, where he was talking about how differently companies work and what he sees as the future of how testing will work in future. The way we work is that we have our testers embedded in teams and they are managed by the team leads. So my role as a test manager there is actually more at the organizational level to set test strategy rather than managing every individual tester and having every test decision go through me. This is what works for us in our environment, and it's been successful over the last 4.5 years. So that's just to sort of like give you a context for where I'm coming from on this. Before I go on to the rest of the talk, I want to ask a couple of questions. How many of you are or have been in the past involved in hiring testers for your organizations? Okay, that's a fairly large percentage of the audience there. How many of you would say that's easy? Piece of cake? Come on. Anyone? Right. Okay. Hiring testers is not easy. In fact, if you go and search online for sort of articles on hiring technical staff of any sort, then you'll find no end of articles about how difficult it is, lots of stuff about the tech talent shortage and so on. I'm just going to, in a moment, talk about a couple of graphs from a recent article from Information Week. If you want to look it up, it's in fact, yep, the talent shortage debate. It was their cover story for November the 3rd. Now, the impact of that skills shortage, of which difficulty in hiring testers is one part, is something they sort of like conducted a survey of business technology professionals at different organizations and asked them what kind of impact this had had. The blue bar here is companies that had less than 1,000 employees. The green one is 1,000 plus. So you can see there's some differences there between them. For instance, it's much more likely for a small company to suffer missed revenue opportunities because they couldn't hire, but it still has an impact on large companies as well. Just out of curiosity, how many of you would say work for companies that are less than 1,000 employees? How many for more than 1,000? Okay, not that many. But yeah, just to go through the delayed IT projects is the biggest one, and I'm sure you've had that during your careers. Missed revenue opportunities, poorer quality IT projects, so you still release it, but it's not as good as you wanted. Or sometimes, you know, just cancelled outright because you just don't have the people to deliver that project. So, what factors affect that hiring? Other than, obviously, the people we want to hire don't exist at all. First one, our salaries are too low. Now, I don't think that many of the people in this room would say that you get complete control over setting salaries in your organizations. So that may be one that you can't influence that easily. Second, our HR department doesn't understand the tech talent market. That's a bit blamey. Somebody else's problem, yeah? Not our fault. We're not seen as a cool or innovative place to work. Well, yeah, certainly if you're Google or Facebook, you have less of a problem getting applicants than, you know, a smaller company or someone who doesn't have quite such a cool product. You know? again, it's a little bit of a, well, it's not our fault one. Moving on to the fourth one here, we're unrealistic about the list of skills and the years of experience that we expect. Finally, we've got one item here where people are actually taking ownership and responsibility. And that is actually considered by the respondents to this survey a pretty major impact. And it's that I'd like to discuss today. That being unrealistic or being, to be honest, vague about what skills you're looking for. I think that looking in at what skills you're looking for, and also that second point about our HR department not understanding the tech talent market, I think those two are related. And I think that focusing in on testing skills and doing a bit of legwork on analysing the particular testing skills you require can help you with both of those points. So let's have a look at a simple model. Can anyone read the third circle here? No? Okay. So this is how I see most job ads. They talk about, increasingly, they didn't used to so much, but increasingly there are more a list of technical skills that people want for a role. They may talk about domain. Yeah. The third circle here is testing. And this I see as a huge yawning gap in most job ads out there. I went and reviewed a few just before I did this talk. I decided against showing them because I thought that's a little bit unfair to point fingers at people, and it would be terribly embarrassing if one of the companies advertising happened to be here. But it's incredibly common to see a job ad that talks a lot about technical skills, that says you need SQL, you need Java, you need Ruby, you need blah, 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 you need, this tool, that tool. A lot about what Paul talks about as testing logistics. It will talk about artifacts. You need to write test plans, test cases, test scripts, exit entry criteria, blah, 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 blah. Essentially sort of like as if it's cut and pasted out of, a documentation list. All of which isn't actually that interesting and doesn't tell you very much at all about what skills you might need to use to be successful in that role. Yeah? Quite frequently, there isn't a single testing skill mentioned. There's a vague reference to, oh, we want experienced testers, but no actual description of what that is. Now, what happens when you decide to focus your job ads and your job specs and your hiring on everything outside this core area of testing skills is that if you hire someone who's actually good at testing, it's only by chance, it's pot luck. Because the people you're attracting into the top of your recruitment pipeline, really, by not describing specific testing skills, you don't actually give yourself any chance of attracting people with relevant ones. Okay, there's another couple of factors here. If you have never sat down and analysed what specific testing skills testers in your department or company actually need to be successful in their jobs, then how can you train them? How can you develop them? How can you evaluate them? Yeah? If you can't sit down with someone and say, you did poorly on that project, and I think that the reasons are that you need to develop this, this, and this. Yeah? Basic fundamental of coaching is that when you want people to improve their skill set, you have to be specific. Yeah? You can't just say, well, you're not very good at testing, be better. Going back to the previous slide, and that first item about salaries, this also does have an effect, I believe, on the money. Let's face it, if when you go to HR with your job spec, the testing skills that you can talk about are, well, is kind of good at this testing thing. And when pressed, you say, well, pays attention to detail, is a good tester, well, is good at testing. They're going to think, well, quite naturally, there's not much to this testing business. And quite naturally, if they don't think there's much to it, they're not going to be willing to pay that much. So there's another incentive too. Okay, so moving on. I know I'm going to get this question, so let's tackle it now. Surely a good tester is a good tester. Testing skills don't vary at all across any project, any company. I've heard this argument from people from a variety of backgrounds, from people who work in very structured, formal environments, from people who work in very unstructured, informal environments, but who say, well, a good tester is a good tester. They can test anything, anywhere. I disagree. I don't think that all testers are the same, that they're all interchangeable. I believe that different environments require different skill sets. They put different pressures on you, and that experience that you have will enable you to develop some skills more than others. I've worked with quite a number of testers who were fantastic in the environment, in the teams that we worked in together. I would not recommend those testers for any environment, or at least not immediately. They were smart people. They could learn, they could develop skills, but they'd certainly, from my experience of some of them, certainly be coming in with a skill set deficit in some areas if they were to switch environments. Classic example that I'm sure some of you may have seen. You've hired someone who's been very successful in their career in a very structured, formal environment, used to waterfall processes. You bring them into fast-moving, agile team where instead of releases taking 2 years, they take 2 weeks. Do you expect that person to be 100% successful? Yes? No? How many of you would say, yeah, they'll have no problem fitting into that team? QED, yeah? The skill sets that you need in those two different environments are different. And as Paul says, we're increasingly working in hybrid environments where people are working with, maybe it's a bit agile, maybe it's a bit, what was the third one that he said? Continuous? Yeah. Maybe a bit agile, a bit waterfall, so on and so forth. And if every company has a slightly different blend of that, then whenever you're moving from company to company, you must expect that it will challenge different aspects of your skill set. Yeah? So being able to model that and figure out where you might struggle, where you'll need to look at, is actually very important for you as an individual as well, even if you're not directly involved in hiring. Let's have a look at the model for this. This should look familiar. It's Paul's new model of testing from earlier. And as he said, all models are wrong, some are useful, and this is useful. Let's take a quick look at some of these and think about how how these would vary in different environments. I was talking to, sorry, I've forgotten your name, Colin, earlier, about working in an environment where you use BDD, and we both agreed that this kind of practice puts much more pressure on your skills in these two areas. Being able to inquire, to challenge, to sort of like go round this loop is absolutely essential to clarifying and elaborating on your scenarios that feed into the whole development process. Similarly, in an environment where you're an embedded tester working in a team with developers right next to you, your skills at writing bug reports may not be very strong because you don't do it that often. You often just turn around and say, hey, look at this. Yeah? Whereas if you're a tester in an external team whose only communication channel with developers is through the bug report system, you'll be doing a lot of this. You'll be very good at that. Okay. So I'll wrap up with just having a look at other factors that are important to hiring successfully, and thinking about your job ads. Culture is important. Yeah. Try to get that across in your ads. Know your main selling point, what makes it attractive to work for you. Avoid Christmas lists because they will lose you good candidates. It's something that especially apparently affects women, that they will tend to look at a Christmas list of 20 requirements, and if they don't match 100% of them, they won't even reply. Why would you want to lose good candidates before they even get into your pipeline? Okay. And lastly, also think about other aspects of recruiting in terms of, for us in Brightpill, what's been very successful for us is to raise our profile by networking, attending meetups, making contacts with the test community, and that, as well as your job ads, can be a really powerful way of getting the right testers for you. And I'll wrap up there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.